our small block Ford engines here, and I'm just going to go over some of the things that's necessary for your end on your installation. All of our turnkey engines are run for over an hour. All the settings are set already. But I'm going to go over, again, our engine here. This particular engine has the pulley kit on here with the AC compressor. If you do have the AC compressor on it, this wire, before it is hooked up to 12 volts, you always want to make sure you have R134 refrigerant in the lines and the AC lines hooked up before you activate the AC compressor on the system. We recommend on all of our engines to run an electric fan, a puller fan, on the inside of your radiator to cool the engine. So you always want to use that electric fan again. All of our serpentine belt systems, the alignment is set. It's perfect. We already set the tension on our belts. We always run the 100 amp chrome alternators. They're one wire hookup alternators. There's a stud and a nut on the back of the alternator. You want to hook a 10 gauge wire from that stud and nut directly to the positive terminal in the battery. It's a one wire hookup. The thermostat housings, we install the 180 degree Fahrenheit thermostats already in there. And what we recommend after you get the cooling system filled up, after the engine gets up to temperature, the thermostat is going to open and it's going to drop the level in the radiator. You want to top off the radiator with the proper amount of 50-50 mix of antifreeze and water in the engine, and make sure that is topped off so you're good there. All of the engines that we test here, the ignition timing is already set on our live run turnkey engines. So you don't have to do anything on your part there. We already set it with the timing light. We tighten down the distributor hold down clamp and they're set. So that's taken care of for you. The ignition coil on your end, all you have to do is hook up one wire to the positive terminal of the ignition coil that has 12 volts of power that's key controlled off your ignition key. So you want to run one wire to the positive terminal that's on and off the ignition key, so when you turn the key on it's got 12 volts. When the engine is running it'll have 12 volts power, and then when you turn the key off there'll be no power to that wire. The negative side of the ignition coil, that is where the tach signal will go for the tachometer. So that's where you hook up the tach signal. You're very easy here. The pipe plug here on the Ford engine, that's a water coolant right below the coil right there. And then you have another water coolant switch on the thermostat housing. Right in behind that there's a 1/2 inch pipe plug. That's used for the heater core hose. So that's where you'll put a fitting in for your heater core hose. Again, the engines are ran in for over an hour. All the adjustments are set. We check for oil leaks, fuel leaks, water leaks. It's extremely closely gone over. When we ship the engines, they'll have no oil in the engine. We drain the oil out. We drain the water and the fuel out of the engines. First thing you want to do is make sure you fill the engine up with the oil. Every engine on the dipstick tube, we put a tag on how much oil you should put in there. And usually about after 500 miles, you want to do that first oil change and filter. After that, every 3,000 miles. Down here, coming on the Ford small block engine here, we run an extension coming out to make it real simple to hook up your oil pressure switch. And you're going to remove that 1/4 inch pipe plug right there. And you always want to use Teflon tape on the threads of the oil pressure switch so you don't have any oil leaks. It's very important. On the air cleaner here, you see this real nice washable element. This can be reused. When it gets dirty, you can wash it and use the necessary cleaner and re-oil it, and it's reusable. On the carburetor here, we set the idle mixture screws already for you. We go over them twice, we set them. We achieve the best manifold vacuum reading we can get, and we set those so you don't have to touch anything there. Right here's the idle screw. We already set the idle for you. That's taken care of. We also put the throttle cable ball on there. We put the throttle return spring on there. We also adjust the fast idle kickdown. This is the fast idle kickdown. We set that screw so when the engine comes up to temperature, it'll come off nicely and idle perfectly. That is set. This is the choke flap. Over here, there'll be a red wire, and we mark the terminals for you very nicely. We have the positive terminal is going to go off a key-controlled 12 volts power right on the red wire. So when you turn that key on, you got to have 12 volts going to it. When the engine is running, it has to have 12 volts going to it, and when you turn the key off, you'll have no power. So key controlled to that, and it'll open up your choke flap so the engine will run nice. We also put all of our Ford engines here. We use these real nice Taylor wire, vertical spark plug wire looms, and the Taylor wires are on here. It's real nice. On the back of the carburetor, if you're running any type of manifold, vacuum, power brakes, any other vacuum accessory, this is where you're going to put a fitting in. You got a 1/4-inch pipe plug on the back of your Edelbrock carburetor here, or the 2 rear intake runners here. These are all full manifold vacuum, so you could easily put a fitting in there and hook up to that for vacuum. This particular application is going to a FFR hot rod, so they get the fuel line going to the back, the rear of the engine, and we put the gas filter on there and the black nice fuel line and check for leaks on every test run. Most engines we have the fuel line over here, but this particular application gets it on the rear of the engine. This small block Ford here, also this customer wanted the clutch installed and the bell housing. We installed a brand new clutch. We align it for you. We put the pilot bearing in the back of the crankshaft. We set again the alignment on the clutch. Everything is perfect. We put the throwout bearing and the clutch fork. We install that in there. We set it. We also put the high torque starters on our engines. Comes with the instructions, the wire for the solenoid. We mark the terminals where the battery cable will go, and then the solenoid wire. It's real simple, comes with everything. Now there's another thing on our engines, it's real important. A lot of people, you have to put a ground strap cable. I recommend on the Fords right from the block. We scrape the paint off the block right there, and you get yourself a 4-gauge copper ground strap cable, a ground cable, and you want to mount it from the engine block right to the frame. Your engine is sitting on rubber motor mounts and a rubber transmission mount. It has nowhere to ground, so you have to create a ground strap source for the engine so the starter will work perfectly. All the electronics, the distributor, the alternator is going to charge nicely, so that's very important. You must put a ground strap cable from the block and the other end right to the frame, and you'll have no problems there. But just going over, this is some of the installation tips I recommend for, we have one of our small block Fords here, the carbureted